Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name's Alyssa. We're super excited you are here. If you're new here, which I know you are because I don't have any other videos, welcome. We're super excited you clicked on this video. Just a disclaimer before we get started, this video is not about professional medical advice. If you have concerns about your healthcare or anyone you love's healthcare, please consult your healthcare professionals. I'm a mom, not a doctor. This is just my experience pregnant with a girl with Turner syndrome that I wanted to share in hopes that it might help someone else out there. So with that being said, let's dive right in. So if I flash back to May 2023, I was 9 months postpartum with my son. He was very busy at that age. It was a very busy time. And I was not actively trying for a baby, but we were super excited when we saw that pregnancy test turn positive. It was a surprise, but she was very, very wanted. And so I took like 3 or 4 tests because I just wanted to make sure. And of course, in true Jayne pregnancy fashion, nothing was not exciting. The second test said not pregnant, and then the third test said pregnant again, and then literally I think I took like 20 tests. Like, I was keeping the pregnancy test companies in business at that time. Every test said something different, and I was like, I didn't know why, but I just loved this baby so much already, because as soon as I saw that positive pregnancy test, I just, you get so excited and you fall in love, and I was super ready and excited for this baby. So I was a little nervous, and I went to the doctors to have an ultrasound just to see, like, am I pregnant, am I not? And I was shocked because it was actually the midwife that had delivered my son that saw us. And in our health system, you never saw the same doctor twice. So I was really shocked to see her. And we did the ultrasound. And when we did the ultrasound, she looked smaller than my son did at that age. I thought that I was about 6 weeks along, but the first ultrasound I got with my son was 8 weeks. So I wasn't overly concerned. I was like, okay, well, maybe this is just what babies look like at 6 weeks. She did a Doppler. We heard the heartbeat. We got an ultrasound, saw her little flicker on the screen, which was her heartbeat. And she looked like this little triangle. And, I'm going to say in this video too, it's hard not to compare. They say you shouldn't compare pregnancies and you shouldn't compare babies, but I always thought, like, what else do you have to compare it to? So I might compare my daughter and my son a couple times throughout this video, even though they tell you not to. But again, it's the only thing I had to compare. So I was like, okay, I'm not panicking the fact that she's that small. Like, the doctor wasn't worried either. So I was like, all right, moving forward. So I was supposed to be like 6 weeks along at that point. Well, in 2 weeks from then, I went to my 8-week appointment, which would have been, I believe, the dating scan. Our health system typically didn't see you before 8 weeks unless you thought something was wrong. So I went to my 8-week appointment, and I was so excited, of course. And I see her on the screen, and she looked different than my son did at 8 weeks. I noticed. My son kind of looked like this little bird on his scan, and she kind of looked like a little pea pod almost. That's like the best way I could put it. She looked like a little pea pod. And the tech didn't seem overly happy. We heard a heartbeat, so I knew she was still with us, and so that was a good sign, obviously. And the tech said the doctor had to come in to see me, so she went to get the doctor, and the doctor came in, and absolutely terrible bedside manner. Basically told me that, are my dates 100% correct? I should prepare for miscarriage. It doesn't look like this baby is going to be growing. Like, he told me to prepare for miscarriage, and she had a heartbeat, so none of that made sense to me. However, that's what he said, and I went home, and of course I was devastated and heartbroken. And so I went from nervous about the pregnancy with the tests happy with where I was with the first scan. Nervous again from the second scan. So he said we were about 6 weeks along at that time. So 2 weeks less than where he thought I was, which meant theoretically, if I was 6 weeks in the first scan, 6 weeks, that would have actually put me at 4 weeks. So I'm kind of surprised that we saw anything at that point. So we're 6 weeks adjusted, let's say. So first scan would have been at like 4 weeks. Second scan, which was supposed to be 8 weeks, was actually 6 weeks. And so the next week would have been 7 weeks. I just was beside myself. I could not wait to get another ultrasound. I needed to know that she was still here. I remember feeling at that time like she was just going to disappear and that I wouldn't even know it. And it was just a really scary time. So I went for an elective ultrasound. I'm not sure how popular they are around the country, but I went for an elective ultrasound, and I heard her heartbeat and she was growing, which was an excellent sign. Elective ultrasounds are not diagnostic. They can't give you any type of medical advice, just like this video can't give you any type of medical advice. This scan is non-diagnostic. Typically, it's an ultrasound tech that decides to go off on their own and have their own business, which I think is amazing, especially for nervous moms like me. Like, it was a complete game changer. So go to this elective scan. I also got the sneak peek blood test during that scan. Super easy. It was just a blood draw, and they send it off to the sneak peek company, and it came back. It tells you the gender of the baby. And so it tells you the sex of the baby. And so I found out very quickly in the next couple of days that she was a girl. And we were so, so excited. Not that we wouldn't have been excited if she was a boy, because of course we would have loved Jack to have a brother anyway, my son to have a brother anyway, but I had always wanted a girl. And so this was like, our family was complete, super excited. And this was like 7 weeks. So then the 8-week scan comes, the official 8-week scan, and she's growing and the heart rate is good. And she looks great. And, you know, everyone is thrilled. Again, big sigh, like those, you know, initial feelings. I mean, it was still scary, obviously. It's still earlier in the pregnancy and we could lose the baby at any time. But we were still really like big sigh of relief here, because at 6 weeks, we weren't, you know, they weren't sure if we were even going to make it to 8 weeks. So we made it to 8 weeks. Mind you, this is all before Turner syndrome came into our lives. So, tumultuous pregnancy from the very beginning. 8-week scan goes great. 10 weeks, we get the NIPT genetic testing blood draw. So the NIPT test is non-invasive prenatal testing. It's just a simple blood test that tells us many things about our baby. It can tell us about how the X's and Y's are affected with our baby with different disorders. It can tell us about Down syndrome in our baby, Turner syndrome in our baby. It can also tell us the sex of our baby. So with my son, I did the NIPT to find out what sex he is. I did not do the sneak peek with my son, so I wanted to know, is he a boy or girl? And the earliest you can find out, which is totally wild to me, is you could do this test at 10 weeks and know within 2 weeks if your baby is a boy or a girl. So that's exciting. But like I said, you can find out all of these things about your baby, about different genetic abnormalities. So I did the test with my daughter, and I remember sitting in the office and, like, you know, they give you the pamphlet. You have to watch a video about the testing. And I'm like skimming through it because I'm thinking to myself, like, what are the chances? Well, I zoom through it, we do the blood work, and I wait. And I get this phone call. And I'm not sure if anyone out there has experienced this, but you know the big moments in your life, like the big ones, where you remember exactly where you were, exactly what you were doing, exactly what kind of day you were having when you receive big life-changing news. Well, I was in my car, I had taken on a project for my manager at the time that no one else really wanted to do. And I was running around trying to get something done for her. Well, during my drive, I get a call from a doctor, and he didn't even say to pull over, nothing. Like, he was quite upset, and he was like, I'm so sorry to tell you, but your baby has, and in my mind, immediately went to Down syndrome, because that's the abnormality that's talked about most, right? Down syndrome. But in that split second that I thought about Down syndrome, he said Turner syndrome. And I said, what's that? And he said, I don't know. All I can tell you is that there's a high mortality rate and you need to talk to a genetic counselor. So I was shaking. Obviously, I was like, okay. And of course, I started Googling. So I'm pulled over by this point, by the way. I'm not doing this while driving. I pulled over and I started Googling, and just the more I Googled, the more tears that fell. And I was all of a sudden sobbing and waiting for this genetic counseling office to pick up within the hospital. And I said, how can I get in today? And they said, 1 o'clock. We had a cancellation. I got the call at 11 a.m. By 1 p.m., I was in the genetic counselor's office. And my husband met me there. And I remember before he got there, I was sitting in the waiting room, still Googling, and thinking to myself, even if she makes it, even if we're the 1% that makes it, because that's the mortality rate for Turner syndrome girls and boys to make it earthside, what kind of quality of life is she going to have? Like, Google makes it look so dark, and they tell you all the worst case scenarios. And one thing I'm not going to do is sit here and tell you not to Google. People tell you all the time not to Google Turner syndrome. Like, the first rule of Turner syndrome is don't Google Turner syndrome. I'm not going to do that, because here's the harsh truth. As a parent, and you can choose to not Google, but I know as a mom who wants to be fully armed with as much knowledge as possible, I Googled and Googled and doom scrolled, and it's inevitable. The only thing I can tell you is that Google will paint the worst case scenarios. You can pick and choose what you decide to, believe and take with you, and then just leave the rest. But I'm not going to tell you not to Google, because I don't think it's helpful, and you're probably going to do it anyway. So just cherry pick the information you choose to take with you and leave the rest. So we get to this genetic counselor's office. My husband finally is there, and we went back, and for the first time in my life, she was talking, the genetic counselor, and I could not hear what she was saying. I couldn't hear it. Like, I've never had in my life a time where someone was talking to me and I physically could not hear them. I was so disassociated and shocked. I kind of couldn't believe this was happening. I can't really explain it. All I can explain is that she was talking. I could not hear her. All I heard was that it's amazing that we made it this far already. We were 11 weeks at the time, and that our 12-week NT scan would tell us more. So at 12 weeks, which actually just happened to be the day after our genetic counselor's appointment, fabulous timing, NT scan stands for nuchal translucency scan. Hope I said that right. Again, a mom, not a doctor. But we had this NT scan, and she was perfect. She, at 12 weeks, presented as a completely healthy, beautiful baby girl that had a heart that was beating at just the right pace. Her heart looked good. There was no cystic hygroma. There were no high drops. She was sized appropriately. She was growing on her own curve at her own timeline. So we were keeping up with the 12-week, size. So they said, they were like, she probably doesn't even have Turner syndrome because you'd see signs by now. Like, we're out of the first trimester as of the next week. Like, you probably have nothing to worry about. This is probably a false positive. This happens. However, anyone that knows me knows that that was not good enough for me. I continued to research, I continued to Google, I continued to read and just devour any and all stories on Turner syndrome, whether it be women living with Turner syndrome speaking out about their stories and about their successes, or other moms talking about their pregnancies and, their babies' success stories. And I would just read and read and read and read. And that's another reason why I wanted to put out this video, was because I feel like, other than the Facebook groups I'm on, which there's some really, really great Facebook groups for the Turner syndrome community, you go on YouTube and there's really not too many videos, especially not homegrown videos about people sharing their experiences pregnant with Turner syndrome, or, things like, testimonial stories. There's not a ton. So that's why I wanted to start this channel. That's why I wanted to start these videos, so that we can get the word out. And really, education is so, so important. And so I waited. The next step was something called an amniocentesis. Now, they gave me two options. Actually, at the genetic counselor's appointment, they gave me two options. They gave me CVS, which honestly, I don't know a ton about. We decided pretty quickly we didn't want the CVS, only because the genetic counselor said that it wouldn't give us a finite confirmed diagnosis. We wanted to know, black or white, does she have Turner syndrome? Get that early diagnosis in utero so that we could plan and prepare for her. Now, one of the big hot button topics on all the Turner syndrome, especially the parents page, is amniocentesis or to not amniocentesis. That question gets asked quite often, especially by moms that are in that 12 to 16 week period. You can only get an amniocentesis, at least in the US, after 16 weeks. They will not do it before. So obviously I had to wait those 4 weeks. But back to it being a hot topic issue. Me, personally, we chose to do the amniocentesis. I always comment on the posts that say, oh, I didn't do the amniocentesis because of the risks. I didn't do the amniocentesis because we were going to keep her anyway. It wouldn't have made a difference. Different comments like that. I feel like those types of posts can be really polarizing, especially if you have a mom that, is kind of leaning one way or the other. To me, amniocentesis, no amniocentesis, I think both are great options. It's whatever you feel in your heart is best for you and your baby. If you feel like you need the amniocentesis because you need a concrete diagnosis, or it's going to drive you up a wall for 9 months not knowing, great. If you are so dead set against the amniocentesis for literally whatever reason, I think that's great too. I think that everyone should do whatever they feel is best when it comes to literally every situation, but when it comes to amniocentesis or no amniocentesis. And so whatever you decide, that's the best option. So flashing forward to 16 weeks, we get the amniocentesis, and it is a flawless procedure. The doctor comes in, great bedside manner, baby cooperates, baby looks great, baby is growing the way she should. And she even said, the doctor said, look, this is probably a false positive, but because she didn't think it was Turner syndrome based on the fact that she had no signs or symptoms in utero up to 16 weeks. But she said, if it is Turner syndrome, this is not the worst thing in the world. Like, there are doctors, nurses, lawyers. There's women with Turner syndrome do big, amazing things. And so, you know, either way, it was a win. We just needed to get her here. And we had no complications with our amniocentesis. We did get the FISH test done, which we had results back in 3 days. Now, our genetic counselor did tell us that the FISH test had a 97% accuracy rate. So pretty high, right? 3% inaccuracy rate, right? So I was excited to have results pretty quickly. And when they do the amniocentesis, you will then also get something called a karyotype. I remember when we received our results from the amniocentesis, my mom was still in town. She had come in town to go get the amniocentesis with me. And I was shopping with her and my baby, my son, at a big mall, and we were walking around, having a great time. We went to the car, and when we were packing up to leave, I got the voicemail that they had our results, and she did have a mosaic Turner syndrome. They said that some of her cells had XX and some had X nothing. And so at this point, it was processing. It was processing the news that we had received. It was mourning a bit of, whatever life I thought we were going to have. I can't say whether those feelings were right or wrong at the time. They were just how I was feeling. You are pregnant and you have certain ideas about what your baby's life might look like, or what their childhood might look like. And to be completely honest, Turner syndrome or no Turner syndrome, you never know what you're rolling the dice when you get pregnant and have a baby. You have no idea what that tiny human is gonna turn out like. Perfect, of course, in every way, but there are no expectations when it comes to kids, I've learned. So it was a lot of processing what life was gonna look like with this diagnosis. And so yeah, and then that was 16 weeks. Oh, so then we had to wait a couple more weeks for the final amnio results. And I remember being in the shower, getting this message pop up from our genetic counselor that she wanted to get on the video call with me. And I thought to myself, what now? Right? What now? 19 weeks. The final results should be the same as the FISH results, right? 97% accuracy. So I get on this video call with her, and she's like, I need to tell you, the results were different in the final amnio results than they were the FISH test. Okay. Well, I guess during the FISH test could not determine or recognize the difference between an X and a ring. So the final amnio results showed that she had some cells with X nothing and some cells with X ring. They sent our results to do a microarray. This helped look at the ring portion of my daughter's results and to look for a specific gene called the XIST gene. So her official karyotype is ring X mosaic. And if you think Turner syndrome isn't talked about very much, well, buckle up, because Turner syndrome, ring X mosaic, not talked about at all. Literally, I think we're one of the rarest karyotypes at 2%. So think about it this way. 1 in 2,500 live births are girls with Turner syndrome. 2% of that one have my daughter's karyotype. So why this XIST gene is important is if it is present, it shuts off the ring, meaning that she would present as a typical classic Turner's girl with different characteristics. If it isn't present and the ring is still active, it could cause intellectual disabilities. However, once they did the microarray, they realized that her ring did have the XIST gene and that my daughter was not expected to present with intellectual disabilities. Now, I want to put this out here too. So there are women, moms, and I believe I've read a couple testimonials from adult women as well with the ring X, that the XIST gene was not present, so the ring was still active, and those girls grow up without intellectual disability just fine. There are always exceptions to the rules. This is just what I was told when we were going through the microarray results with our daughter and the ring. Speaking of karyotypes, I guess this is a good time to bring this up. I remember when I was pregnant, I was obsessed with karyotypes. I wanted to find someone that had my daughter's karyotype because I thought to myself, okay, if I can find her karyotype in someone else, that can tell me what kind of symptoms she might have. That can help me prepare. Like, I'm a prepared girl. Like, I like to be prepared. I like to have everything in order. It's probably the type A in me. Like, I just, if I could find that karyotype. One thing I've learned in my mountains of research that I've done over the past, I don't even know, 2 years or whatever, whenever I started this journey, is that no one butterfly is the same. They're all super, super different. And just because you have one girl that has one karyotype and another girl that has the exact same karyotype, they could present completely differently. I don't know the science behind that. I am not a genetic counselor. I'm not a geneticist. I'm not a doctor. I don't know how to explain that. It even blows my mind, but it's just what I've understood. So this took us to 19 weeks where we got the final amnio results. Flash forward to 22 weeks, we had our anatomy scan and our cardiac echo, which both were flawless. She was in the 50+ percentile, no heart abnormalities. Like, we were turning and burning here. My girl was killing it. Then I thought, you know what? This pregnancy has not been exciting enough. Let's move. Let's move, and then let's change health systems. So I changed health systems, and of course they want their own anatomy scan. So that anatomy scan I just talked about, that was flawless. All of the structures were present. She's growing perfectly. 22 weeks. This is now 27 weeks, 5 days. You know, that gets tossed to the side because what health system wants another health system's anatomy scan? So we start the anatomy scan. I'm excited to see my girl. And I would say maybe 30 seconds into the anatomy scan, the tech goes, "Did you get a fetal MRI?" And I said, "On my belly? No, I did not." She said, "Oh, because there's a couple brain abnormalities I think they missed on your first anatomy scan." Now, ma'am, I've worked with enough ultrasound techs to know that you are not supposed to say that to a patient. But nevertheless, I was just completely sobbing and devastated. I mean, who wouldn't be? Being told that your baby has this missing and that missing and ventricles didn't look right and all the things. And so the anatomy scan was basically over before it started. Oh, but she did tell me that my daughter was in the 4th percentile, which meant she was intrauterine growth restricted, which meant I went to the doctors twice a week for 10 weeks to get 2 non-stress tests and 2 ultrasounds for 10 weeks. So back to this anatomy scan. I'm talking with this doctor on the phone, and what he's saying is not making sense to me, of course, because the doctor's not on site. So the doctor was trying to explain to me what the tech was seeing, like, remotely. So they said they could get me in for a fetal MRI in 2 weeks, and I told them absolutely not. They would see me Monday or Tuesday of next week, or I'd be going elsewhere. This was on a Friday, of course. So it was a really fun weekend. So I'm talking to this nurse navigator, and she's telling me that one of the things that was a pretty big deal that the ultrasound tech saw, was that the vermis was missing, that she could not visualize the vermis. The vermis, from what I remember and understand, is like a drain for spinal fluid. The nurse was explaining to me that this could cause something called Dandy-Walker syndrome. Dandy-Walker syndrome is a congenital condition where the cerebellum does not develop normally. It can cause different things like hydrocephalus, seizures, vision problems, developmental delays. It's a myriad of different things. And because it's a syndrome, people that have it ranges from mild to moderate to severe. And if she did have Dandy-Walker, of course, we would have absolutely loved her. We would have gotten every support that she could have possibly had to have the very best life possible. And we would have pushed through, right? Like, this was not something that would have changed our minds about proceeding with the pregnancy or anything like that. It was just one of those things that it's like, we are now 27 weeks, 5 days into this pregnancy, and what next? Aliens? Like, it was just one thing after another after another. And I've called it often the genetic abnormality roller coaster, because as you can see, from the second I took that pregnancy test, it has been up, down, up, down, up, down. I mean, there's just been no relief. There's been no breathing. I didn't breathe for 9 months. Like, I still remember that feeling of not being able to breathe. And so the weekend happened. And of course, on Monday, the health system we were at originally did not find me an appointment. So they didn't care when I decided to go elsewhere. I called the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, told them my story. They were able to get me in the next day. And what do you know? My sweet, sweet baby girl, we did the fetal MRI. We had the results back very, very quickly. And she was perfect. I mean, the tech was not wrong from a patient perspective of see something, say something. However, what she saw was definitely not what the MRI saw. The MRI saw something called inferior vermis mild hypoplasia, which in mom terms is basically the vermis was just like slightly shorter than it should have been at that time. And I guess from where the tech was in the angle with the ultrasound, she just couldn't visualize it. They say, and I'm not an ultrasound tech, again, like not a medical professional at all, but they say that the ultrasound is just like a window. So you can only see so much. So do I blame her for sounding the alarm bells? No. It's, at first I was upset. I felt a certain way about it because I was like, all of that worry, all of that sleep lost, just all of those terrible, suffocating feelings of anxiety. But I'd rather her say something and us get that sigh of relief than her see something, not say something, and it be something down the line. And so that was our fetal MRI story. That was at 28 weeks. And by the way, this wasn't good enough for me. It's never good enough for me, right? I keep saying that wasn't enough for me. That still wasn't good enough for me to get this amazing news. I needed to talk to the chief of pediatric neurology and make sure that this inferior vermis mild hypoplasia wasn't going to impact my daughter in any kind of way. And if it was, what were the watchouts? So we virtually meet with this chief of pediatric neurology at one of the hospitals. I don't remember which hospital it was at, but we met virtually. It was before Christmas time. I remember this very clearly. And I said, are there any watchouts? Like, is there anything to worry about with this condition? And she said, actually, I don't know why we're even talking on this phone call. There are no watchouts because there's nothing there. This is a non-issue. This is incidental. I don't know why we're having this conversation. And that is the best thing she could have possibly said to me. It was the best Christmas gift ever. I remember for the first time in what felt like for weeks, I just breathed this sigh of relief. I mean, I forgot to mention, of course, the 1% statistic is terrifying about the fact that only 1% of girls diagnosed with Turner syndrome make it earthside. Like, that is not an easy statistic. That is a scary, terrifying statistic. And that loomed over me the entire pregnancy. And at 22 weeks, when we had our first anatomy scan, I forgot to mention, the doctor had said, look, she has every chance, based on her condition, presenting the way she has every chance to make it earthside as anyone else. Like, of course, there are risks. Pregnancy is terrifying. Okay. I'm just going to put that out there. Pregnancies without issues, high risk pregnancies, all of it is scary. Like, to me, and there are people that have flawless pregnancies and that love being pregnant. And I'm so happy for them. I'm so happy for them. I think that experience is so beautiful. And I'm so, so happy that you're having a good pregnancy. That was not my experience, okay? I was terrified for both of my pregnancies. I'm not afraid to admit it, especially my high-risk pregnancy with my second. Like, nothing compares to that. And so, finally, we were able to enjoy. We spent the holiday sticking bows on my belly and taking pictures of the only holiday that I would have been pregnant with, Christmas, that I would have been pregnant with my baby. And I had this beautiful little baby bump, and my son was, I don't know, I don't know how old he was. Maybe he was like 16 months old, something like that. Like, it was a really, really good holiday. We rested easy. I could feel her moving. Like, it was the best gift ever, hearing that news from the pediatric neurologist. And then we just waited. We prepared, of course. We prepared her bedside echo, her kidney scan, her NICU consult. We had a consult with NICU. We had them on site in the delivery room when she was born via scheduled C-section. Another question that gets asked a lot is, can you have a Turner syndrome baby vaginally? And of course, that is up to you and your birth team and your healthcare providers. But what I've found is that there are many, many Turner's girls that are born vaginally. There are many, many Turner's girls that are born via C-section. We were a scheduled C-section because Turner syndrome or not, I had a terrible vaginal birth experience with my son. And so I was not doing that again. And I scheduled the C-section with my daughter because I didn't want any crazy things to happen. There was enough craziness in my pregnancy. I wanted the most boring birth possible. Disclaimer, not to say that C-sections couldn't be crazy. I don't know why I said that, but in my mind at the time, okay, a scheduled C-section, like, I felt like I had more control over it for some reason because it was scheduled. I don't know if that's true or not, but that is just what my brain said. And by the way, all birth is hard. None of it is easy. C-sections, vaginal, all the things, none of it is easy, and every birth plan is valid. And so on Valentine's Day, my beautiful baby girl was born into the world. And when I heard that cry, I just got goosebumps even thinking about it. It was one of the happiest moments of my entire life. I remember hearing her cry and thinking to myself that there were so many times over 9 months that I was pregnant that I did not know if I was going to be able to hear that. And like, I cried, of course. Like, I tear up even just talking about it because it was just such a big moment. She was born so healthy that they tried canceling her bedside echo and her kidney scan because they weren't going to give an echo to a perfectly healthy baby? To which I said, you absolutely will. This is a part of the clinical guidelines. And what's the point in being diagnosed in utero if you aren't going to follow the clinical guidelines? And so the pediatric doctor that was rounding decided that she couldn't do it, but she would call the geneticist and he could do it. So we met with the pediatric geneticist, and he said yes, he would order the echo. And I'm really, really glad he did, because we found 3 heart abnormalities on the echo that we would not have found and we would not be monitoring had they not done the bedside echo. So that leads me to kind of a conclusion, I guess, or at least a conversation around advocating. From the very beginning of the pregnancy to when she was born and to this day, she's 16 months, advocating is so, so important. You know, one thing that we're going to teach Jayne, my daughter, as she gets older, is how to advocate for herself. We're going to teach our son that too. I mean, regardless, Turner syndrome or not, I think in this day and age with healthcare, with everything, you need to be your biggest advocate. And so because she can't be right now, that's us. We are her biggest advocate. If we have a gut feeling about something, you bet I'm going to push for it. You bet I'm going to get a second opinion. You bet I'm going to break down doors and shout loud until someone hears me if I feel like it's that important. And at 16 months, she is perfect. She is beautiful. Her personality is beautiful. She is beautiful inside and out. She is sweet and affectionate and hitting her milestones, crushing her milestones. I know I'm her mom, but she's crushing her milestones. We are in physical therapy every other week. She was falling behind on her gross motor. We've been in early intervention since she was 4 months old. This is, at least in my state, a voluntary program. It's free of charge in my state. And basically, it just monitors milestones with you. We automatically qualified due to her diagnosis, but like you just monitor her milestones and make sure she's keeping up with where she needs to be. And I love this program because it helps me kind of keep track and keeps her and gives us another set of eyes, like a third party, to really look and see, like, is she where she needs to be? Because my mom goggles will tell you that she is where she needs to be, probably even if she's not. But yeah, she's honestly doing great. We've had very minimal signs or symptoms so far within the last 16 months. If you have any questions or you want me to dive into her heart abnormalities, you want me to do a separate video about our experience with the clinical guidelines and the specialists that we've seen because of the clinical guidelines, I would love to do a video on that. I might do one anyway, just because I'm so passionate about following the clinical guidelines, getting in touch with these specialists and in the system, that even if you don't need them right now, it will be so much easier to get an appointment with these specialists if you're already in their system. I'm also going to post some pictures of my beautiful girl just because I cannot help but share her. She's pure joy and pure happiness. And I hope that this video helps whoever is watching it. I hope that if you are a loved one of someone with Turner syndrome or a loved one of someone pregnant with a girl that got a high risk or an official diagnosis of Turner syndrome, that this helps you maybe support them a little bit better. And to those out there that are pregnant with a baby that, again, got a high risk assessment or, via NIPT or got an official diagnosis via amniocentesis, however you are feeling is completely valid. If you're scared, valid. If you're angry, valid. If you are facing this with a strong face and you are just full speed ahead, nothing's bothering you, valid. However you are feeling is completely valid, and you are not alone. You are not alone. It feels like you're alone because no one knows what Turner syndrome is. You're not. There are so many other women out there going through exactly what you're going through. We have a village. We have a community. You are a part of that community. And we're really glad you're here. Even though it's a roller coaster you did not ask for a ticket on. You're buckled in. We're with you. And we're going to take this ride together. As always, thank you so much for watching this video, and have a great day.